See if this is okay. So today I have a very special guest, and she is a powerhouse in the world of CrossFit. She is CEO and owner of HungryFitness, and she's not only an accomplished athlete, but she's also a very passionate coach. But what really sets her apart is she has an unwavering commitment to her clients. And I have learned from being coached by her that she is your cheerleader by nature, and she loves to combine her education and her experience to empower her clients in their health and their physique and performance goals. And with over a decade of coaching experience, she has definitely learned, what works, what doesn't, and she's always on the quest to learn more. So, without further ado, I would love to welcome Michaela North to the Gritty Glitter Badger podcast. Hey, Michaela.
Hi, thank you so much for having me in such a nice, generous intro.
It is well earned. I mean, you just fabulous. I'm so excited to have you here. Now, I would love to have a little bit more background for my guests who maybe don't know you as well as I do or other people, your athleticism, like athletics, what you've done. I mentioned CrossFit, and then also I talked about, your company, Hungry Fitness. So I would love to have you shed some light on that for my guests.
Okay, I will try to do just a condensed version. I've always loved anything physical, moving my body, and I would say I love to compete, but almost mostly with myself. Like I love to just continuously improve at things. So I love trying new things. And I played sports at a young age and like quickly fell in love with all different types of sports, volleyball, soccer, basketball, did some dance in there as well. And definitely fell in love with the sport of track and field. Some things that I liked about it where I was still on a team and a part of a team and giving points, for my team, or I guess earning points for my team. But there was the individual side of it too, where I could really focus on, beating my previous scores and getting better. And the work ethic translated really well to improving on my races or my jumps or hurdles. And so I really liked that I was kind of in charge of my outcome. And it's pretty black and white, right? Like you get playing time.
Yep.
Everyone gets playing time. Everyone gets an equal opportunity to score. And if you do well, it's pretty black and white. Like it's not someone's opinion of if you ran the fastest or, had your best time. And so I loved track and field. I did the 100-meter hurdles and the long jump and the relays and some of the sprints. And I ended up going to Weber State University and getting a scholarship there for track and field. So I spent 4 years competing at Weber State and did indoor and outdoor track. And I did the 100-meter hurdles, long jump, kind of same events. But then I also added on the heptathlon my junior and senior year. So that was really fun. I feel like it was almost like a precursor to falling in love with CrossFit because it's scored in a similar fashion. You do 7 events over 2 days. And each event you're scored, you get a certain amount of points. And so it's the cumulative score at the end of the 2 days that determines placement. And so you can't really have anything you do really terrible at or that will ruin your score. And you can do really well at one event, but if you do poor at the other ones, it doesn't really matter. So needing to do pretty good or better at all the events to score well. And so I fell in love with that. And I think it taught me a lot, especially with it ending with the 800-meter race, which in my opinion is the hardest race ever. Just very mentally and physically exhausting. And I'm built all power and speed. And so it was a lot to run those 2 laps at the end of 7 events. So I always dreaded that, but I feel like that prepared me really well for CrossFit with the mental side of things. I graduated in 2010 and dabbled over that summer with half marathons and let's see, actually, no, that was the next summer. So I took kind of a year, like never wanting to compete in anything again, pretty burnt out, sort of reestablishing like fitness. It was always a sport for me. Moving my body was always a competitive thing. And so I kind of took a break and then realized, no, I actually want fitness because it makes me feel good. And so I started to just kind of reestablish a relationship with fitness in that year following. My husband, we were married for about 2 years at that time, got married very young, and he was working as a trainer, and had played football in college. And so he was, training clients, and I was so I'd go to the gym while he was there sometimes, and sort of got into a fitness routine. And it was funny, actually, at that time, he had found CrossFit. I think it was, I can't remember. It was out of Florida, and they would post workouts. And I remember doing the Filthy 50, and we were at the CrossFit gym, and I was like, 50 pull-ups. There's no human that could do 50 pull-ups like that. There's no way. And I think it was maybe toes to bar. I can't remember. I scaled it down in reps, and I kind of adjusted. But I remember doing that and thinking it was just the worst idea ever, but so fun too, to push myself. So over that next year, that's when I got into some distance running. That was kind of all I knew as far as like, what are some fun things I could do that people do outside of sport? And everyone was running marathons or half marathons. So I did a few halves and I did a full, and that was when I found CrossFit. A friend of mine was interning at a gym, and they invited me to a free Saturday workout. And he said, I had so much fun. It was running and kettlebell swings and just a variety of things. And it felt like track and field, but way more fun because you're not just running, you're doing a variety of things. And I loved weightlifting. That's always been something I've excelled at. And so lifting weights in addition to running was much preferred. And so I had a blast, and I wanted to do it again. And he told me how much it cost. I remember, which was a big deal. We were really poor at the time. Did not have much in terms of income coming out of college. And so like $100 a month was just, there was no way. But he mentioned that they were doing a tryout that next Thursday, and if I made the team, I could come for free. So I was super excited about that. Didn't really know what I was getting into. Went and did the tryout, and thank goodness I think it was wall balls, box jumps, and running, which from a track and field background was definitely my wheelhouse. We didn't do any pull-ups or any gymnastics.
No toes to bar.
I did great and didn't really know what CrossFit was in just those 3 movements, but they asked me, to be on the team, which I didn't really know what that entailed at the time. And I quickly just fell in love. I had graduated in business marketing, and I was currently working what I thought was my dream job at an ad agency, doing account management, and loved it. But also knew I wanted to be a mom at some point, and I didn't really see how that would be possible. It seemed like in the ad agency business, the longer you were there, just the more hours you were working and the less work-life balance you had. And so I was kind of like not really seeing that as my future. And I never knew that fitness and health could be my future. The only thing I had ever seen modeled was a trainer, at a Gold's Gym, which was what my husband was doing kind of at the time. And I knew like that was not it. And that was not what he wanted long-term either. It's just really hard to make a living doing that. And so without kind of supplementing with other things. And so I saw the CrossFit gym, and I saw the community that was had there, and just the feelings that being a trainer there, how different it was compared to a commercial gym setting, and the environment feeling more like a team, which is what I had come from. And also seeing that I could have flexible hours and possibly do that really easily as a mom instead of working at the ad agency. And so I pretty quickly, I would say like within the week of joining the CrossFit gym, I was planning on competing. I never really started from like a just general health standpoint. I started to compete in the sport of it.
Yeah.
And I also got certified within, I think, 3 months. And by 6 months later, I was certified and coaching and just fully immersed in the gym, and then spent the next decade competing and loving it. I did some individual at the regional level, and in between babies, I had boy-girl twins, and then I had another child a year and a half later, and then I had another child 3 years after that. And so kind of having kids and competing, and then eventually went team in 2017 and we won the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
And I found out I was pregnant that following week. And then just kind of went into baby mode with my last baby. And uh, from there, I had thought that I would go back to competing and go back to
Yeah.
doing individual again. That was definitely a goal of mine to go to the games as an individual. But at that time in 2018, they had kind of switched the format. So instead of just doing
Yes.
the open and qualifying for regionals,
Yep.
which was possible for me as a new mom of 4 kids, like I could do the online qualifier and then travel for the weekend for regionals, potentially somewhere not too far. And then if I made it, go to the games, where they switched to instead all of the sanctional events.
Qualifiers and
Yes, and it just was a
yeah.
lot more. And I think having won the games and like feeling just really proud of where my CrossFit career had gone, and just
Heck yeah.
the fulfillment of that. Like I didn't really feel like, I think my drive to like really do it again had gone down a little bit. I think my goals had kind of shifted. I feel like I'd kind of been there, done that. Not to say that it wouldn't be a completely different experience going individual, but I think that
Right.
combined with the change of the format, I just kind of switched gears. And I also had a really severe diastasis recti from my twin pregnancy that I had been
Oh,
managing for 4 years. And I was kind of ready to just get that repaired. I'd done a lot of physical therapy, and it was about 7 or 8 centimeters wide, and I could manage it. And I mean, I competed at the CrossFit Games. I could snatch 200 pounds. Like I was able to do a lot with it, but when I would relax, my abs would still be 7 to 8 centimeters separated. And it
wow.
was definitely something I was dealing with, that I was kind of ready to have fixed. And
Yeah.
so,
And you want everything to stay in.
yes, and just
I
like
mean,
I felt so like vulnerable, kind of like with, yeah, everything
yeah.
coming out in between my abs. And so about a year postpartum, I had that surgery and they sewed my rectus abdominis muscles together. And oh my gosh, talk about just having your core intact again felt so good.
Yeah.
But with that, I transitioned to more of like a bodybuilding style template of lifting, because I was really wanting to make sure I rehabbed correctly, and I was very core conscious. So I didn't want to throw myself back into full body lifts again. And then in CrossFit too, like all of the gymnastics work and all of that, I really rehabbed carefully and slowly to where I felt like I could do CrossFit style training again. But at that point, I had 4 kids. We moved further away, and I kind of had fallen in love with bodybuilding. So
Hmm.
I started training out of my garage and doing that, and went on to do one show in the wellness category just from an experimental standpoint. I thought that it would be
Yes.
fun. I love just trying different things. And so that was
Yeah.
a
I
really,
remember seeing all the posts about that and you like the journey, how you followed. That was
yeah,
amazing. I mean, the
it was a
transformation
really,
was unbelievable. I actually have a friend right now who she's getting ready for her very first show. And so she's going through the process. And so this will be, I'm really excited for her to hear this episode. And because she's understanding now, like peak week is coming up
oh
and,
yeah,
all of the things. I mean, it's a different beast altogether
it
from
is.
the CrossFit space of eat your food to
Mm-hmm.
now you're learning how like you're backing. I mean, you understand it's one end of the spectrum to another. So I love that.
Yes, it's very different. I feel like, leading up to the CrossFit Games, I was very physically compromised because we were training just to manage that training volume. I had so many, aches and pains and injuries that I was
Yes.
nursing. But mentally, and mentally, that mental load was very high. Everything kind of revolved around getting my training in.
Hmm.
Um, but then with bodybuilding, I felt a little bit better physically. I think I controlled that volume better, but the mental side was a
Oh,
lot. It's just the psychological side of seeing your body change, and then also
yeah.
like not recognizing the change. You're constantly thinking about that and evaluating that. And then on the other side, you're calorie depleted for so long that it's even beyond hunger. It's more just pure exhaustion. So feeling that mental
Yeah.
fatigue all the time was challenging, on top of the mental load of adding in, making sure you got your training in, but then also all the posing and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. You're just kind of mentally fragile. And so you can't really handle as much, but you still have quite a bit to do to prep and make sure you're on point, for your show. And so it was definitely two very different experiences, challenging in very different ways, and both I learned so much from. So glad to do both of them. And I don't really have a huge desire to do either of them again. And I think that is because I kind of transitioned, from like my 20s and maybe early 30s, from really wanting to achieve physically. And that just really excited me, to now I feel like I've shifted to, building HungryFitness. And we coach hundreds of women on their nutrition daily, and over 1,000 women on the app doing workouts. And I think my passion to achieve personally has really shifted to helping others achieve their goals. And not that I don't have goals anymore. I think like right now I'm signed up for a couple half marathons again.
Me too.
And some triathlons. And I love having some small things.
Yeah.
But I think the difference is now I do them for fun. Like, I wanted to do a couple races at the end of summer because I want to be outside all summer. And so I want to get my running in outside. And it's just kind of like a fun way to make my fitness fun. And it's really, that's what it's about. I'm not planning on winning the half marathon,
right,
or any kind of pressure on myself. It's just a really fun trail race, and it pushes me to run trails all summer. So now my fitness is more about how can I make this fun and try new things and continue to accomplish things in regards to, maybe going after physique goals or performance goals, but not taking on the mental load required to be excellent in those things, or top, like giving that extra one, like 99.9%. I would rather enjoy my weekends with my kids and not be thinking about my next meal or my next workout. And then when I have time to give, I really like giving to the women in the HungryFitness community. It's so gratifying in a different way. And so I'd like to think I've taken all of my learning and I can now share that with other women, because that excites me just as much at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can speak to that 100%. And it's interesting. So my brain, when you talk about like you're doing the half marathons, I'm actually doing my very distance. Look,
you don't need to explain
not friends.
Same.
I did track in high school as well. But what's funny is we didn't have like a heptathlete. I didn't even know what that was until I was like doing some like homework for the podcast. And I looked at
I didn't know what it was till college, if that makes you feel better. Until my coach was like, hey, we want you to do the heptathlon.
I'm thinking I was like a quad athlete because I did 4 events. And
yes,
so
that's standard for track. Usually 4 events is kind of the limit. And the heptathlon is actually a separate competition. So like at the conference championships, we would go up early and we would compete Wednesday, Thursday, and the heptathlon was like a separate event, but we would the conference championships. It would be like scoring for one event. And then I would compete in my individual events Friday, Saturday. Friday would be prelims for hurdles, long jump, and then Saturday would be finals. So it'd be 4 days of competing. But scored separately. I
admire the hurdles because I tried those because I'm taller, and they thought with my longer legs, they're like, oh, you can do this. Oh no, no. Let me tell you, face planting on a track I'm so good I will do the 100 meter sprint. I will be the anchor leg for the 400-meter relay, and I'll throw javelin and shot put. We're good. No hurdles. So that was like totally out for me. But do you think that, because I know for my brain, like I've been in sports since I was 8. And so for me, I mean, I'm 51, and that's like 43 years, 42, 43 years of my life. So always having a challenge. And like you said, it's not about like my life isn't going to revolve around it, but I feel like my brain is wired that I need a goal. at least to
Yeah.
focus towards. And so like for the half marathon, that's what it is for me. So I'm like, okay, I don't care. My goal isn't to finish first. My goal is to just complete it because listen, a 5K, I just ran my first 5K. My granddaughter had, it was a fun run. And
Fun,
she's
yes.
5. Okay. So I was thinking we were going to be running around the track at her school. Oh, it was a legitimate 5K. So I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh.
whoa. So, but I did that. And so I'm like, okay, you know, but it's just having that challenge. And so does your mind work in that way too? Like just geared towards, okay, like let's do this challenge or here's this
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's an athletic thing or a personality thing. I have you ever taken this is very like woo-woo, but the Enneagram test, maybe it's not
You
woo.
know what? I wanted to. Okay, so I looked into that, right? And because I've done my original major in college was pre-med psychology. So I
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
was
be a
like minor.
psychiatrist, but then
Yeah.
I hated all the medication. I didn't like that, right? So
Yeah.
I dropped the pre-med and so I did all kinds of like psychology tests and stuff like that,
Yes.
personality, and I looked into the Enneagram. God, this was maybe it was Christine Cole
Okay.
from CrossFit. She
Okay.
had talked about it or something. And so I looked into it and I'm not like when I was reading through this stuff, I didn't officially take the test, but I was looking at all of
Okay,
the
I'm gonna send you
outcomes, their
the link
numbers.
for the test. Yeah, their
Yeah.
numbers. Yeah.
And so like fall into like three different like there's definitely a main, but
Yes.
then there are these little offshoots where you're just a little bit of this and then a
Yep.
little bit of that. So
Mhm.
yeah, oh it's not woo. I'm all
I
into that.
I'm the same as you. So I was a psych minor. I only switched because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go to grad school to if I'm a psych major. Or if I'm a business major, I can get a job, you know. So
Yeah,
I and my mom was a therapist. So you know, I've always just psychology is like I could read anything related to
same.
psychology and be just intrigued forever. But I have taken so many different tests, and the Enneagram, I don't know if I'm just weird, but it makes so much sense to me. And it's how you're motivated, like what
Yeah,
motivates you. And I am a 3, wing 2, and a 3 is achiever and 2 is helper. So it's like the things that motivate me are achieving things and then also helping others. And so it makes sense that my career path is like exactly that.
yeah,
Um, but it also is something that has made me aware of like, okay, am I just doing this thing to achieve it? Or does it actually mean something to me? And or am I just doing it because it's there in front of me or someone told me to do it or
yeah,
I think other people expect me to do it? So it's been helpful from like an introspective side of things that I feel value by achieving things. And
yeah.
so I've tried to like detach myself from that a little bit. And so even actually with going back to competing CrossFit as a master's athlete, I'm 36 now. A lot
Hmm.
of people have asked me, and that is something I considered like, well, why wouldn't I? That I could do great at that as a master's athlete. And I could go achieve that thing. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute, that would be fun and exciting. But I have all these other things that are rewarding in my life that I don't,
Yeah,
do I really want to spend time and energy pursuing that because it requires a lot. I know, I know what that would require. And so I think knowing my Enneagram has helped me to be a little better at making those decisions. But then also I think it's given me some empathy for myself in that I do like to have goals and achieve things.
yeah,
It does like it really fulfills me. And that's not the case for other people necessarily. And that doesn't mean that they're not fulfilled, you know? So
yeah,
I think reminding myself that like it's okay if other people don't always have goals that they're setting for themselves, but also it's okay if I do, but I do need to kind of look inward and ask myself like, okay, now why am I doing this thing? So for me, doing the half marathon race is so fun because it does like I know getting outside this time of year is really
yes,
good for me and my mental health and it feels good and it aligns with my values of what I want to be doing right now. And so I'm trying to be aligned with those things as I set goals for myself. Um, Instead of just like to achieve the thing.
yeah.
So I don't
I
know. The
love
Enneagram
that.
might give you a little bit more kind of understanding of yourself and then also others in your life that you love too. It's nice to know how they're motivated.
Yeah, true. It's funny that you mentioned like your goal for the half marathon, and I did do a really deep dive because somebody asked me to do it. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, well, and first of all, I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, so like distance for you is not great. And so I have this like entire conversation in my head that's telling me that it's just not my jam. But
Yes.
then my mouth was like, well, yes, of course I'm going to do it. So
Yeah.
then it's like, I'm like, okay, why? And it's like, it's like figuring out why. Because I have had this conversation in my head since I was in track and I was a sprinter, is that I cannot run distance. And I'm like, no, I need to change the narrative. And who is
Yes.
responsible for changing the narrative in my head? It's me. So I'm doing it so that I can change how, the conversation that I'm having about running distance. And
Yeah.
I mean, and that's literally, like I said, and it's like, I don't need to finish first. I just need to prove to myself that I know that I can do it and
Mhm.
stop the conversation of saying that I can't. And so that's the big goal.
Well, I'm the same. I'm definitely not built. I am built all power and
Yes.
no endurance. But I do think, I don't know, for me too, showing my kids like that I can go out and do something hard that I'm not the best at and it still find fulfillment in that is big for me too, because that's something I preach to them all the time. Like you're
Yep.
not going to be good at everything. And the thing that you start out at that you're terrible at, like if you like it and you want to be good at it, that's possible. Like you can
Yeah.
put in work and improve and be your best at that thing just because you're not good at it when you do it. Or maybe it's not like genetically something that you're gifted at. You can still enjoy that activity
Yeah.
and get better at it. So
Yeah.
I feel like modeling that too is important. And part of my motivation as well. Like I'm gonna do my best out there.
Exactly. And they see more than we ever know. I mean,
Yes.
just, my daughter played volleyball in college, and now with my granddaughter, like she loves to work out in the garage gym with me.
So
And
cute.
she just is always, she talks about she wants super muscles like Amma. And so now
That's
I
cute.
want her to hold on to that. And it's just, especially with girls, I think it's
Yeah.
so difficult with being muscular and
Mhm.
like that. Well, it's like you can't get that naturally, or there it's like, but you can. You know what it's called showing up every day, and it's
Mhm.
called putting in the work. And it's like it doesn't happen overnight. And like maybe everybody's muscles develop differently. My muscles aren't going to look the
Mhm.
same as yours or somebody else's. And I just feel that it's accepted more, but I think
Yeah.
there's a lot more room for growth for women
Oh,
in,
absolutely.
just to this, the, I don't even know, I don't know if it's even body positivity, but, and I don't like the body acceptance thing either.
I
I
think
think,
I think that striving to be strong and capable and
yes,
empowered and how that looks is going to be different on everyone. But I think also being open to the fact that if a woman is muscular, like she is working hard
yeah,
physically and pushing herself, and that's something to be celebrated, not feared. And
yeah,
I think when women begin to lift weights, especially, and they recognize like how good it feels to be able to lift heavy things and like push their
uh-huh,
body and they don't even it's so funny. I've heard so many women over the years say I want to look a certain way, I don't want to look bulky, and then somewhere along the line they start lifting weights and they realize like how empowered and good they feel and how
yeah,
confident they feel, and then they see that that also changes their body and they put on muscle and they love how that looks. And it's
yep,
funny because I just think you see it differently when when it's on yourself and you know the work that it took to get that. And then I think also like we all look different too. And it's just it's funny to me on the one hand that people think that it's so easy to achieve. Like they're just gonna lift
yeah.
and wake up the next day and just be like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Like, hey, here we are.
And when the rest of us are working so hard to build any bit of muscle we can,
Exactly.
decades of work, it's almost laughable. And I think when women actually start to work out and push themselves physically, they're really happy with how that ends up looking on their body. Because usually it's improved body composition, like they're likely losing body fat and putting on muscle,
Mhm.
and that translates to a more toned look, and that's going to look different on everyone. And I really haven't met many women that are frustrated with that result.
Right.
But I think that we fear it, at times. And I do think with the narrative changing, it's been cool to be a mom and lift heavy and have my kids, have that be just normal for them. Where
Yes.
I remember my mom worked out growing up, but I remember being a kid in school and having boys even like comment on how big my legs were and just feeling really self-conscious about being
Yes.
muscular. I've always been pretty muscular, and it's something have been self-conscious about on some level, like most of my life. But hearing my sons even say like, "Oh, mom, the boys at school were like, whoa, your mom's jacked," or say something, and I'm like, "Oh, they said that?" Like, I don't even think about kids talking about stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, my boys are 9 and 10 now. And they're just so proud. Like, yeah, they did. Like, just, I'm like, is that embarrassing for you that your friend said your mom's jacked? And they're like, no, it's so cool. And my daughters think that lifting heavy is just a normal part of an everyday life. So I think it's been so cool to feel, judgment over something that now is celebrated in my own home.
Yes.
And for my kids too, like that's not something they will ever have to deal with. Like they wouldn't even give that a thought if someone made fun of them for being muscular. They would
Yeah.
they would laugh because they know the benefit of that and how good it feels to work hard. So it's interesting. Yeah, 36 years to kind of see that shift for sure. And
Yeah. It is.
I'm glad in society too. It's, people
Yes.
are striving for that and recognizing beyond looks, like our whole life is improved when we have more muscle tissue and are
Oh, absolutely.
functionally
And
fit.
even things we can't see, like bone
Yes.
density and,
Mm-hmm.
which is so important as for women specifically, through the
Especially
aging
women.
process with,
Yes.
sarcopenia and all that. So just
Mm-hmm.
knowing that and having that and, just I think it's invaluable. The earlier that you can start and, do something that jams with you too. That's the other thing. Like, and I don't
Yes.
know if you've ever had this, but I will get people like, well, I want to work out, but I don't want to do what you do. And I'm like, well, you don't have to do what I
Yeah.
do. There's so many things out there.
We've
Like,
just talked about so many different types of fitness. Like
exactly.
there's
And,
so
it's
much.
like, find whatever that is and, and it will change. I mean, I
Yes.
started out, I started training when I was 15 and I did it around the sports that I was doing, getting a gym
Mm-hmm.
membership and which was hilarious back in the 80s and the Jane Fonda era and
Oh
all the
yeah.
leotards and stuff. Oh my God. And it just progressed and then I got into CrossFit and I did that and now it's like I'm back to my roots and that weightlifting and I love that. And so it will change. And so with that, like who are some individuals through your experiences that you look up to that influenced, your values and your mindset and then the path that you are on now?
Gosh. I'm trying to think. One of my first actually around that when I came home from school, I remember in PE, it was when some of the boys were talking about. I'm sure they were self-conscious that their legs were small and they were sitting next to me and mine were
Yeah, they
bigger.
were.
And so they wanted to say something, but I went home like so sad and my mom found like I don't know where she found it. It must have been like a track and field magazine. I don't know, but I think it was Marion Jones and she showed me how she looked and like what she was achieving and how beautiful she was and muscular and I just remember like thinking, oh, okay, like there's someone else out there that I just didn't see a lot of role models that had visible muscle, like a lot of really athletes, I would say. And so
Yeah.
seeing that changed my perspective early on. And then I would say, um, not so much, I had amazing coaches in high school that were both women in track and field, and that and that was just really helped me develop a love for the sport. But I remember when I saw the very first, I think it was maybe the CrossFit Games, my very first year competing, I watched and seeing all of the women competing in CrossFit in 20, gosh, would that have been 2012?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, those are my
Yep.
people. Like, look at
Yes.
so many strong, capable women
Mm-hmm.
with visible muscle. And I felt just so excited. Like I had found other women to look up to and aspire to be like.
Yeah.
And
Like your body made sense finally.
yes.
That's how I felt when I saw CrossFit for the first time. I'm like, oh my, I'm like, my body, I understand that. It makes sense to me now. I see theirs and
Yeah.
it's like, I felt relieved.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also excited to pursue the sport.
Yes.
Like, okay, this is there's other women out there. And so that I was really inspired by that. Instead of like trying to shrink down and be less, I saw women
Yep.
that were even more, way stronger than me and way more capable. And so it was like, oh, I felt like I could embrace who I was and also want to even become more and not be so worried about how I look, which is funny because I was looking at how they looked, but it was like seeing women differently and seeing strong women celebrated. I think I
Yeah.
haven't really seen that in my life. And so that was really a cool kind of moment for me or realization for me. And then throughout my life, my mom has always done a fantastic job of not tearing herself down. Like I don't really remember her ever talking poorly about how she looked, or like ever criticizing how I looked. And so I think I just seeing that model to helped me on with self-confidence, a lot with just pursuing things like hard things in life and feeling like I was capable and also not judging myself as much, I would say. And then I'm inspired daily now by all of the women on the HungryFitness app, like as they complete a workout or have a PR or learn something new, as well as the coaches on my team. I'm always learning from them. And yeah, I would say some of my biggest inspirations now are the women on the HungryFitness app and my own little girls, which is crazy. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter. And just yesterday, my 6-year-old went mountain biking with me and my 9-year-old son, who's very athletic, and she had never ridden on a mountain bike trail. And we tried to gently encourage her not to join us. And she ended up walking like the whole thing. And she was so frustrated and mad. But I like just seeing how determined, my kids are, I think inspires
Yeah.
me so much with just like, okay, I do not need to be done being determined and like seeking out, new
Yep.
things in life. And so yeah, those are some of them. And then definitely my husband. He works out every single day. He is like the most habit-oriented person I've ever met. And so his like steadfastness in just his daily habits that allow him to feel his best also impacts me too. I have really good habits, but even I think I have been able to just really prioritize a lot of the things that allow me to feel well because I've essentially like made it my career. So
Yeah.
I think that yeah, he inspires me a lot too with just continuing to do the things even though sometimes they aren't fun. I think you talked about like changing your fitness routine. I think it is
Yep.
important to start with things that you enjoy, but I think it's also important to remember that you likely won't always enjoy those things. Like I love to lift weights and
Mm-hmm.
shoot, 5 out of 10 sessions, I don't really want to go. Like there's
Right.
other things I would like to do for
Yep.
sure. And so, but the feeling I get after, like I never regret moving my body.
Yeah. And that deep, and I think too, and I talk about this all the time. And it's in my experiences, things that I've just come across is that I think our culture scape, our society has the propensity to there's a fear around hard work, right? And
Mhm.
like, well, unfortunately, guess what? There's going to be hard work. You're going to have to show up and you're going to have to put in hard work. And then there's going to be like the easy fun work. But then in the middle, there's all of this mundane.
Yeah.
And because I don't know, for me, if it's something super challenging, and this is one of the reasons why I loved CrossFit, is like the harder it was, I'm like, let's fucking go. I'm like,
Yeah. The better
okay.
you feel after.
Yeah, I'm like, I am going to be decimated. I may feel like I'm going to throw up, and I'm so in. And
Yes.
then it's like they're the easy ones, like, okay. And then there's all of that stuff in the middle. It's like, oh my God, but you do it. And
Yeah.
that builds that. It's like you're dedicated to the discipline of doing whatever it takes, no matter what the work is, you're going to show up. And like you said, motivation is so fleeting. And in psychology, motivation actually, I think it translates roughly to like change.
Yeah.
And, so there's a lot of times where I don't want to show up. Like I work from home and my
Yeah.
garage gym, I train from
Yep.
home. So
Convenient, but it's like yeah, no, I don't want to be home sometimes. I just want to go
no.
do something else outside of my house. Yeah. And my
And
kids
it's
have
so
crap everywhere in the
ingrained.
garage.
Yeah, and it's so ingrained, like you said, your husband is steadfast. And I think there's like a switch, and I have the switch that, like, okay, like, do the thing, just go out and just
Mhm.
do your warm-up and you're good.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, hey, I did the warm-up, so well, let me try just one set of the first exercise. Okay, I did that. Let me try the second set. And there are times where, and a lot of times, I have to break it down. The entire macro workout, I'm
Yes.
literally breaking it
One
down.
thing.
One thing, okay, we did the set. All right, well, let's do the next one. And that's how I'm getting through it. And I I think we fall short not showing that to people. it's
Hmm.
it's very extreme. It's the easy or it's the hard, but
Really
we
hard.
miss all of the stuff in the middle. And I think the middle is where all of the juicy growth and all of the good things happen.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing my husband has going for him is he loves routine. Like he loves routine. And
Yeah,
I
I can relate
crave
to that.
novelty. Like I love novelty. And so I have to continuously find ways, like I am doing the same programming. I actually like doing the same programming week to week. And, I stick with the same programming for easily 6 to 12 weeks before I really change a ton with my
Yeah.
lifting. And so sometimes even just like a new playlist, or maybe I will go to the gym on this day because I get a new
Yes.
environment and it's worth it to spend that $20 a month to like every once in a while I can go to the gym. Or
Agree.
maybe I'll put on like a different outfit that makes me feel excited. I'll lay it out the day
Yes.
before. Or, I think just like, or maybe I'll change the order in how I'm doing things, or I'll kind of change the time of day that I'm lifting, depending on it. Like sometimes that will help. Or if I know motivation is low that week, I might do an early morning workout, which sounds counterintuitive, but if I like get up and get it done,
Get it
then I
done.
don't have to worry about it. Where if
Yeah.
motivation is high for me, I can work out in the afternoon and really enjoy that. But if it's low, I'm gonna probably find something else to do in the afternoon, and I'm gonna I'm tired on top of it.
Yeah.
So like do the hardest thing first is kind of um sometimes what I like to do, because then after that things feel easier. And so and also allowing myself, I think the biggest thing that's helped me with sustainability, whether it's my fitness or nutrition, is okay, sometimes I really don't want to do a workout and I have to think, okay, why do I not want to do this workout? I know moving my body is going to feel really
Yeah.
good. It's going to lower my stress levels. It's going to allow me to think more clearly about everything else. I'm going to have some endorphins. I'm going to be working towards, my physical goals. Why do I not want to do this? And sometimes it's that I think, I have to do the entire 75-minute workout that I had programmed at full intensity. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, no, I can scale this down to 30 minutes. I can pick the main things that I want to get done. And if I need to, I can do those at 70% instead of 100%, and I'm still moving my body. I'm working the muscle groups I want to work. I'm doing it in a little bit more manageable chunk of time, maybe mentally or even just like logistically for my day. And I still feel really good when I'm done. I can check that box. And I think that those type of days are the days that are really the difference between achieving your goals and not achieving your goals, because those are the middle 80% that's just
Yep.
like, we're just checking the box and we're doing the thing. And it's not the best workout you've ever had and you're not hitting a PR, but you're just moving that needle in the direction that you want to go. And you know that your, future self will thank you for that. So
Yeah, it's like getting out of the all or nothing mindset.
yes.
And that's a trap for me. And
For
I
most
have to
people.
be really cognizant of
Yeah.
that. And I have gotten so much better. And again, it's like I don't know. Is it because I'm a lifelong athlete? Because you got to show up, and so it's just one of those things. And I have had like training sessions where I've come in and I've started out, I'm like, yes, and then I got halfway through and I'm like, it's like I can't. I literally feel mentally and physically like I can't go on. I can't, and I'm like, if I do go on, like I'm either going to haphazardly go through it and I will injure myself,
Yep.
or, so I'm like, so let's stop. And if I feel like revisiting the rest of it later, let's do that. If not, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my trail run, or, I'm going to
Yes.
go ruck,
Go for a
and it's going to
walk.
be that. Yeah. And so I've been so much better with myself and being more compassionate there, because it's such a trap for me. I mean, just
Yeah,
getting
I think
into the self-talk around it, and then
that's the key to sustainability, right? I think when you're pushing after something short term, like maybe, we have clients in a fat loss phase, like that's going to require sacrifice. That's going to require shifting some things around, to be in a calorie deficit, right? That's not going to be easy. But if you do that and then you're maintaining your progress, like that should feel very doable. And so finding
yeah,
ways to continuously make that sustainable for you is really important. And same with maintaining your fitness, right? It might be really hard to go from, it will be really hard to go from never working out to working out, 5 days a week and like feeling strong and capable. That's going to be a hard process, but
yeah,
maintaining that feeling strong and capable is way easier than going from, zero to that. So I would say wherever you're at, like, what is, a little bit more than you can do right now. And I think the thing that I see getting in the way for a lot of, friends and people I know when they want to achieve something, whether that's fat loss or athleticism or, becoming a runner, or is that they try to overhaul their entire like routine. It's like, okay, I want to lift weights, so I'm going to do it 6 days a week for an hour a day. And it's like, no, let's do 2 days a week for
yeah.
30 minutes. And let's just get in the routine of moving your body maybe on those other days. Let's do a 10
Take
minute
it
walk.
from there.
And yeah, or instead of slashing your calories down 600 calories, like let's focus on getting protein in with 3 meals a day. And let's focus on getting some color onto your plate and drinking water throughout the day. Like if we can make those small shifts, and at the same time as we're making those, physical changes, also work on mentally shifting to, what do I want to be like? Like, what is the end goal? How can I start to think like that person now and see myself as that person
Yeah,
now? Like, believe that I can be someone that values their health and is choosing this because that's important to me, not because like I have to do it or like I can't do
right.
it. And so I think that can really shift from like self-loathing and wanting to change things to valuing who you are and like what feels best for you. And that subtle change in identity can have such a big impact on how you incorporate new habits and make those shifts, and also on like giving yourself grace and
And
compassion.
yeah, and it
Because if I
just
miss a
circumvents.
workout, yeah, if
Yeah,
I miss a workout, I'm not worried about if I'm committed to my fitness routine, right? It's
right.
for a reason that's valid, and I'm not stressed about it. Where if someone's just starting and they miss a workout, that's a huge deal. And so I think just like seeing yourself as that person, and okay, maybe I can't do that full workout today. Like, what's a way I can move my body that feels
Yep,
good? That is a value of mine.
totally. So I would love to talk nutrition, because you are like, I see you as like the nutrition guru. And
Oh,
so
definitely not.
I,
Always learning more. I feel like the more I learn, the more I realize
well,
I don't know very much.
I love the paleo. OMG. I always say OMG. I don't know why that is because I look at that and I see that, then I think I
Yes.
have to say paleo OMG. But what you did with Julie, that it's
Yes.
fantastic. And it's I love the small chunks of it because it's, by pun intended, it is easily digestible. You
Mhm.
watch your video and then you can just like really like break it apart, and it's taught me so much. I mean, I thought I knew, no, I don't know everything. That's just the thing. I'm like relearning food for myself, but what are some of the biggest misconceptions and misinformation that you've seen being shared in the fitness and the nutrition space that you've come across?
Gosh, so many. But I would say one of the biggest ones is that like this one specific way of eating is the
Oh,
right and only way.
yes.
And I think people get really excited, and I understand this too. I think, when I very first came across the paleo diet like 15 years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Everyone should be doing this. This is the only way of eating. And there are so many benefits to following the paleo diet, which,
Yeah,
I evolved too, but mostly just eating whole foods and animal proteins. And there are so many benefits there too, but it also is restrictive, right? And in some ways. And so that might cause more harm than good for some people. And I think it's just recognizing what are my goals? Okay, maybe I want to see body fat loss. Like, okay, well then I'm going to have to have a calorie deficit to get me there. And there are so many ways to establish a calorie deficit. It could be through tracking your macronutrients, or just tracking your calories, or tracking your calories and your protein, or it could be done through intermittent fasting. It could be done through a paleo diet. It could be done through a keto diet. It could be done through the carnivore diet. I mean, there's so
right,
many ways that you can achieve a calorie deficit, whether that's through restricting food groups, or restricting, just calories, and having access to everything and tracking it, or restricting the time of day that you eat. There are a lot of ways that can work to achieve a calorie deficit and achieve fat loss. But I have just found through coaching hundreds of women, with that specific thing, that it really comes down to what's your lifestyle, what are your food
yep,
preferences, what are your workouts like what's your fitness routine like? So all of those things are going to play into what is the best way of achieving a calorie deficit for you, and what might work really well for you might work terribly for someone
yep,
else. And then I think also with that, like, what is going on with you hormonally? Like, do you have any autoimmune conditions? What stage of life are you in? So there's a
yep,
number of things, like a really high carb diet might work really well for someone that's really active and doesn't have any issues on the autoimmune side, or maybe on the opposite, someone that's going through perimenopause might feel a lot better with a lower carb, higher fat diet. And there's just, I think, getting to know the individual, or if you're doing it on your own, experimenting and finding what works best for you. And I think also recognizing that because there are so many ways to achieve a goal through nutrition, that there really isn't a just right way. And if someone is saying like there's only one way to do it, then I would
yeah.
say it's a huge red flag.
Like,
So,
yeah, that's
and
what you actually, I was gonna, that was my next question is too, like, most places, or not places, but even just like programs, they don't look at the specificity of a person's daily life. And like
right.
with the Hungry Fitness, it's like you said, you are looking at, even to like, the environment that they're in, that
Mm-hmm.
are they a parent, or how many kids, what are their activities like with the kids on any given day, stressors, what lifelong habits do they have? And like, for me, I'm perimenopause, menopause. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've been like high protein. I mean, I've always eaten a
Mm-hmm.
lot of protein, but now I'm like very diligent about that because it's super important. And the other funny thing is Henriette is I'm in the fat loss cohort, and it's more I'm in it to relearn how to eat because I have had a very hard time not eating like I'm still competing.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I need to relearn and rewire all of that. And so that's why I'm doing the fat loss. It's not necessarily for the fat loss, it's to teach myself how to eat over again and why
Mhm.
I'm doing it and what's the main goal of it. And so did you, when you transitioned out of CrossFit, so how, first, was it difficult transitioning from being a games athlete into daily life? And then also, like, what was nutrition like for you? How, like, getting out of that and being able to learn again, like, how to eat for different reasons?
So I was a little bit different because I was a games athlete and then I was a pregnant human right
Yeah.
after. And then also coming off of the games, I was like, I needed a break. We went from training, gosh, 3 to 5 hours a day. And so I really embraced those first 3 months of pregnancy and did very little, and also was very flexible with my diet as well. And then going into I think I really went into the same at that point in life. I guess I was a lot more focused on I wasn't restricting anything in terms of like paleo diet or anything like that, but just more thinking about like what allowed me to feel my best. So in pregnancy, I was focused more on nutrient intake than calories, but postpartum, I was wanting to see fat loss and then also still breastfeed and work out. So I was more conscious of calorie intake, getting adequate protein, getting healthy fats. And that was pretty much how I was eating as I was training for the games. Obviously, a lot less food though, because my energy output was a lot lower. I was
Yeah.
burning way fewer calories in the day. And even now that's something I think about, like the amount of calories to maintain my current body weight versus the amount of calories, when I was competing is different. And it's
Totally
much
different.
lower now, obviously. And so,
Yeah.
and then on that note too, I actually love that you're in the fat loss cohort, even if your goal isn't necessarily fat loss. Like obviously we might change your calories to,
Yes.
maintenance. You might not like being at the lower calories because, but everything we will be going over and that we've gone over so far in this fat loss cohort is really setting you up for optimal health.
Yep.
And we add the calorie deficit onto it, but the things that we're really focused on are how we can make that calorie deficit as easy as possible on everyone in the cohort. And that's going to be really focusing and prioritizing veggie intake and fruits, eating whole foods, getting in plenty of fiber, drinking lots of water, having
Yep.
adequate protein intake, getting in movement, making sure we're recovering and getting sleep. And really optimizing circadian rhythm, adding in, making sure we're doing resistance training regularly throughout the week, and getting in steps or more non-exercise activity. And so all of those things are going to set you up to really feel your best, and
Yeah.
then that allows you to be able to handle the stress of a calorie deficit as well. So I think so I do like that you're doing that, because I think you probably you'll learn a lot and recognize a lot on the just overall health and
Oh
well-being.
yeah. I already have, just in, because we got our macros. Was it? I got mine early because I think
Yeah.
I filled my paper. I'm that person in class. I want my
I
paper
love
in.
it.
So
First
I
in, first
totally,
out. Yes.
homework done. And so I got my macros early and I started figuring stuff. And actually, I was worried because I talked to Henriette about, I was really worried that because with that competitive training and the eating,
Hmm.
everything, it revolves around that. There's a very specific reason why you're getting the calories and the macros that you are. And you need to really make sure that you're getting them in because the purpose is for your training, right? And it also helps with the recovery and everything, and your muscles and all of that, right? And so I was concerned about, because I've been going more intuitive, and so
Hmm.
I'm like, I didn't want to fall into that obsessive thing again, where I
Yes.
was like so hyper focused on like, oh my God, I got my protein, but I still need, I need 10 carbs.
13
But if I do
grams.
this,
Yeah.
then it's gonna,
Yes.
so,
Macro
and
Tetris.
I'm not. And I'm like, you know what? Protein, that's my goal. And
Hmm.
I've gone over in my protein. like by 10 grams or so, whatever, maybe a little more each
which is
day.
fine.
And,
Yes.
and I'm fine with that. And the carbs are falling in line and I'm not like quite getting as many. And same with the fats, but I'm not obsessed. And
Yeah.
I actually feel great. I don't know if I was under eating or I'm not sure what was going on or if my ratios, like the food, I don't know. But anyway, in 1 week, it's working and I feel mentally okay about it and the
Good.
tracking. And so, yeah, it's working for me right now.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm gonna,
I think what you said too, I think, if you hit a plateau in your fat loss, or you just aren't seeing any results, and I think then yeah, there are a number of things you can do to kind of dial things in more, right? You can be a little bit more meticulous, but I don't think you need to start out that way. If you can have flexibility in the beginning and still achieve your goals, like
yep,
hell yeah, let's keep it as flexible as possible. And I think for most people, focusing on a protein goal and hitting, within 10% on your calorie
yep,
goal is really important. And then from there, like, okay, let's make this easier on you. Let's make sure we're getting plenty of fiber, which for most people is, 25 grams per
yeah,
day for women is like a really good goal. And if you've never been conscious of your fiber intake, that's probably double of what you're eating right now. So you don't need to hit that today. Like, okay, let's think about what foods are high in fiber. Let's add in one or two things per day and let's just slowly build that up to 25 grams, knowing when I'm at 25 grams or above, I'm going to be way more satiated throughout the day. My hunger cues are going to be down. I'm going to be just more full and satisfied. And that's going to really
yeah,
help me in this fat loss phase. Same with protein, getting in more protein. If your optimal protein intake is 130 grams and you're eating 40, like we are not gonna shoot for 130 today. Like let's shoot
yeah.
for 60 and add
That's
in.
where I'm at right now, 160. And I keep hitting like 170, 172.
Yeah, see, and you've probably been eating a higher protein diet for a long
Yeah,
time. That's like
yeah,
really easy, and you find that you're even more satisfied with a little bit more,
yes,
and there's kind of that sweet spot for you. Where if you're hitting 190, then you're not getting enough carbs, and your probably energy is
yes,
low, and fat intake is probably too low. So it's like finding that sweet spot and just knowing that that can take some time, and that's okay. And usually, like gradually getting there is going to be a lot better as well. But making those changes, like, okay, I'm going to add in a cup of vegetables with my snack and with my meals, like you're going to just notice a difference in a
yeah,
week too. Like, yeah, you will notice a difference. And I think the thing that I love that you said is that you feel so much better in just a week. And you didn't even mention what the scale said. So I think recognizing too, if you are going for a fat loss goal, like just know that that takes some time, and
yeah,
noticing all of the ways that you're feeling better is what is going to keep that motivation a little bit higher, and just the discipline factor as well. Because you're not going to see a new low on the scale every day. Like that dopamine hit is
yeah,
great, but your weight might hold for a week or two and then you'll see a drop.
yeah. And it
So
won't be, and again, it's like it's not necessarily even fat loss for me. I'm fairly tall, five
right.
eight.
Yes.
And I know what you mean. It's like, and again, it's like it could be water. I mean, you did just
Yes.
whatever it is, the fluctuations, hormones. I mean, my hormones are
Uh-huh.
partying right now
Yep.
every day. And, so it's such but just being, able to do that and not be obsessed that's a huge win for me already.
Yeah, I love
So I
that. I
just
think
love it.
that's
And I love the
possible.
education of it and all of the
Good.
the things that we learn. And so that just, I think I'm such a geek with all of that stuff, so the more I learn, I just am like, that helps me with my goal of health and longevity. Like that
Yeah.
is my ultimate big ass goal in life, is to be as healthy and, the longevity, like to have that for as long as I possibly can in the best
Me
way that I
too.
can.
I
So
love
now I have so many more questions. I just feel like
that.
there's so much we could talk about. But I want to ask you, if you could have any superpower, but it had to be like a kind of a useless superpower, what would it be?
Oh, there you go.
No, I know it's like, I was like, what?
It froze. You said I wanted to ask you, and then that was all I
Yeah, okay.
had.
So if you could have any superpower, but it had to be like a kind of useless one, like wasn't necessary, what would it be?
Oh, definitely teleportation.
Ooh,
I
oh, that's
love to
good.
travel. Like that's like when you were starting to ask, I was like, I have no idea. And then immediately, yes. Not having to fly places and just being able to like go to different places, but then I would have to have
Yeah,
my family also be able to teleport with me. But I love seeing new places and different ways that people live. And I just think I would love to be able to just go all over and see all the different places in the world that I've wanted to check out and
that's a really, I like that one.
different
And
cultures.
yeah, and lastly, and I've done this with myself. I've actually written this out as well. Is so thinking back, what is something that you would like to tell younger Michaela?
Ooh, hmm, so many things. I think just like what we talked about really, and something I've really come to know in my later 30s is that you're enough. Like without needing to achieve anything, you are of so much value just as you are. And so I think that's something I recognize now. Um, but I think growing up, just like I think trying to be enough by having achievements, it kind of was what I strived for a lot. And so releasing that and just, yeah, that would probably be one of those things.
Just as you are. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this has been lovely. I have the best first guest ever.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I
It's been so fun. I
I
haven't done a podcast for a
appreciate
minute.
what's that?
I haven't done a podcast for a minute, so it's been so fun to do it with you. Thank you for
Well,
having me.
I'm so grateful that I'm like, oh my God, she's actually said she would do my podcast. I'm just so excited. And I loved all of the insight and just getting able to, chat and talk about a lot of like really cool things. I know there's like so much more that I could just like chat with you about. Who knows? Maybe we'll have to like set it up in the future again. Who knows? I mean,
Yes.
there's so many more questions, but if all of my people that listen, if they aren't following Michaela, you are like the best kept secret on social media. So I will put
Thank
your
you.
information, your handles in the show notes so everybody has those. And that's all I got. I really appreciate you coming on here and just, thank you so much.
Thank you for your kind words and thank you so much for having me. It's been
Absolutely. Thanks, Michaela. Have a great day.
you too.
Bye. I'm going to turn this off.